There was a really talented artist in the class when I was a kid. He always had the best drawing in class every single week, and I was jealous because that boy was not me. I wondered, why didn't I get that kind of talent, that kind of gift? But here's what I couldn't see back then, and I wish that somebody had told me, that gift that he had, it wasn't actually a gift. It was a setup for a trap, one that many talented kids never escape. Most of us aren't gifted or naturally talented. I, like many others, like most people, started from absolute zero, and I wanted to make this video because there are plenty of people like me who aren't gifted or naturally talented. Most people will need to work really hard to learn every skill they gain. And this might sound really controversial or upsetting to some, but as a concept art teacher, I've noticed over the years that the most talented students have the biggest burden to overcome. And those who start practicing art later actually have huge advantages that they aren't even aware of. So if you've ever felt like you started your art journey too late, this video is made specifically for you. One thing that you probably haven't ever thought about is why gifted can become a trap. We all see shapes differently. We all learn to translate the world in our own way, especially when it comes to translating three-dimensional objects on a two-dimensional canvas. Some people face less friction early on. They stumble into techniques that just click, that they are the right techniques for that specific person. But there's more to art, especially if you want to keep growing. Some people that are very technically skilled say that nobody is gifted, that everybody needs to put in the hours, put in the work, and everybody can learn to paint and draw exactly the same because everybody has access to those. But I disagree. I think there is a real gift that some people just have. And it's not talent, it's time, support, and encouragement. Most of us didn't grow up with all three. Most of us are not born into a situation where learning art is encouraged, and it's often an expensive luxury too. So let's not pretend that everyone even starts from the same starting line. Not everybody can even afford the basic tools needed to learn art, let alone education. In your first art class as a child, it's normal to see very big skill gaps. In those sorts of classes, the teachers often give the skilled kids more praise and attention, and sometimes they're not really qualified to help those left behind to get better. I'm talking about actual kids here. In addition to art, my teacher also taught me math, English, and history, among other things. I'm not blaming that specific teacher. I want to be clear about that. The system was the problem. Art is taught to kids like it's a competition. And I think that's just fundamentally wrong. And it permanently damages the relationship people have with their creativity. And this can last throughout their entire life, unless for some reason later in life, they question that maybe art is not a competition after all. Maybe it's a skill that I can learn if I put enough effort into it. In one of those classes, I remember asking my teacher how I can become better at drawing. And honestly, she didn't have any answers that would have been useful for me at that age. She wasn't an art teacher, and she couldn't see my specific problems with developing my drawing skill. And that's completely normal. I just wanted to be one of the good ones in the art class because I was also led to believe that this is a competition. That experience left me feeling that some people are just better at this. And I'll never be one of those kids that can draw amazing illustrations in minutes. I'm not alone in this, that's why I'm saying this. I've heard from many non-artists that these similar experiences were the reason why they stopped doing art altogether. That they went to an art class and they were told that this is basically not for you. Or they experienced that situation in a way that they left feeling like if you're not already good at this, there's no point putting more effort into this skill. If you think about this, it happens in all other areas as well. If you happen to go to a sports class and you're fast at running track, then the school will push you to doing more of that. There might be somebody who has like a great passion and latent potential for being a great track athlete, but if they aren't encouraged the same way that the super skilled ones are, that potential will never surface. And this happens all the time. And I think for this reason, everybody needs to ask themselves that what do I have the potential and passion for? Not what I have some kind of inherent skill for developing. Because the years that I'm talking about here, they are just the few beginning years of your life when you are developing your skills, basically. It's such a short amount of time. When you're older, the time that you spend in school seems like just a blink of an eye. And you can easily do that at any age. That's just the start. Everything else is just work. And when you're older, you're more willing to do the work. So starting late is actually a real superpower. And I'm gonna explain why. There's a huge trap in being one of those gifted ones, the ones that are always best in class. When you're young, we're not really doing art for the same reasons that we do art as adults. Especially young teens are just forming their personality, their self-esteem is really low, and the praise that skilled art awards them forms behavior patterns. You get good at one thing, you get praised for it, so you keep doing it again and again. And eventually, you're not making art anymore, you're performing. Suddenly, you build a cage from these compliments that you are getting, and then you're just doing that same thing over and over again. When you're young, art, like many things in life, is just about approval. You learn to chase likes, the praise. And what happens when that praise runs out, or worse, when it becomes hollow? This can really easily turn into a dead end when you want to make more than just pictures, when you want to use your skills to tell your stories and create your own worlds that have a real feeling in them. I'm not saying I was in any way above this type of behavior when I was younger. I wanted people to like my art when internet galleries were invented. I started chasing likes and followers like anybody else. I was desperately trying to fill this void within myself with attention. Obviously, that didn't lead into a good relationship with my creativity, and more importantly, this is the important part, and I hope you remember this. For that reason, it didn't lead into any good actual art, because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. There's nothing about this period in my life that I regret in any way. It's a completely normal thing for younger people to let their ego and their fears drive their decisions. But this is a huge burden for artistic growth. When you come back to practicing art later in life, it's much easier to make faster progress with way less effort. Whenever you feel like you started late, remember these 4 simple reasons. If you didn't get early praise in life, if you struggled, if you feel like you're too late to the game, good. That struggle gave you something that they didn't get. That gave you realistic expectations. You already know that this is hard, so you show up and ready to learn, not to be a prodigy. You know that it takes more than just showing up to do the work. You're not here for overnight results. Let me tell you, as an art teacher, do you have any idea how frustrating it is to teach someone who has learned that all they need to do in art classes is to show up? Because that's how they got all the best grades up to that point. Those people exist. The people who already have a high level of skill when they show up to the concept art classes, they make the least amount of effort, and for that reason, they make the least amount of progress during those courses. those people exist, and other people will just blast by them because they are used to the work. If you aren't burdened with that attitude, you also miss opportunities to learn new things. And I'm teaching concept art, so I'm teaching people to come up with ideas and communicate those ideas. So I'm putting people into very uncomfortable spaces in their mind when they are doing the design work. The people who are used to just being good, they aren't willing to go to those places, even in their head, because it's just too much work that they are not used to. But for everybody else, you remember how hard learning art was. You don't show up with naive expectations that you will somehow pick this up over the weekend. You know that to succeed, you need to put in concentrated, targeted effort, and you are willing and able to pay that price. Secondly, you have lived experience. You're not drawing to impress. You want to say something. You've lived more, you've felt more, you want to say something. You have a reason. And that leads to bravery. You're not guided by others' opinions, you are in control. When you're older, you care less about what other people think. That's a superpower, and it's needed to make good, meaningful art. You're not here for approval, you're here for meaning. And that kind of bravery makes honest art. When you're older, you care less about others' opinions. At 15, that was all I care about. I'm not proud of this, but I think it's pretty normal in that age too. However, when you're older, you're not chasing approval, you're chasing meaning, which makes you purpose-driven. You have the most important ingredient needed to make non-selfish art. You're not trying to prove you're good, you're trying to communicate. And there's a very big difference between the end results of those two reasons. After graduating from general upper secondary school, I went to army and then to art school. Actually, that's a lie. If I'm being completely honest, after school, I tried to get into all of the good art schools, and I didn't get into any because remember, I wasn't talented, I wasn't gifted, and I hadn't developed those skills yet. I couldn't get into any of them. That's the reason why I went to army before applying to art schools again. So when I started studying art seriously, at that point, the timing couldn't have been more perfect because I wasn't childish anymore about it. I wasn't childish about studying art. I didn't think that I deserved to be good. I finally set my ego aside and trusted the teachers to help me grow. It's not enough to have good art teachers. You need to be also willing to learn for that to mean anything. I stopped trying to be good. I started trying to learn new subjects, new styles, mediums that I had never touched. I tried just because the art teachers told me to. I gave myself a permission to be a beginner again, and that changed everything. I was willing to be bad to get better. As an art teacher, I've also noticed that students who start late already know what it's like to struggle, and they don't run away from it. That gives them a massive edge. They're not afraid to learn. They're not afraid to work. In the school where I normally teach concept art, some of the students are literally my age, and they have changed careers and decided that I'm gonna give this art a go anyway, and I'm willing to be a beginner, and I'm here to learn. Obviously, that's a very brave decision to make. And that bravery also extends to their subjects. They're more willing to explore what their art means and what kinds of moods they want to create through their work. For someone who's always been the best in class, asking them what their art is about or who is it for is often like pulling teeth. It's so frustrating. For many, the impressiveness of their images becomes like a shield to hide behind, and asking for more seems almost unreasonable because for all of those the art teachers have given them nothing but praise up to that point. So here I come and I'm demanding for them to talk about their emotions, that what are they depicting or what are they willing to talk about in their art. And I'm just hitting a dead end when I do that. And for other students, it might seem like I'm picking on these talented students who many of them look at with envy, but I'm trying to help them as well. And I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I let the talented kids just coast by one more art class without making any progress. This challenge of looking within can be overcome by anyone. But that hard part for beginners is honestly just another hard thing, just another learning opportunity among all the other work that they are already doing. So they are not drawing a red line into exploring the message and what they are communicating in their work. It's just one more of those tasks that they are learning. Okay, now to make this practical for those of us who are still studying and still trying to get better, here are some real strategies for those of us who had to work for all the skills that we have. First of all, embrace the small, ugly beginnings. I hate it when people say sketches need to be pretty. I love my messy starts because by making the first marks on canvas, I'm already ahead of all those people out there who'd like to start painting but don't actually do anything about it. By even making a mess, you're already contributing more than the millions of people out there who describe themselves as more of an idea guy. You know everyone has great ideas. You're actually making something. There's a difference. Let your art reflect what matters to you. Don't let yourself off the hook by just making pictures. Ask yourself what you are saying and use that to guide the design of your work. This will also let you know when your painting is actually done. It's not when a certain level of polish has been reached, but when the message is working. When there are no elements that distract from that message, that's when you know you're done. A lot of people ask me how I know when my messy paintings are done, why do I just stop? I know what the painting is about, and when I have reached that point, when that message is delivered, I start a new painting. Develop a practice that feeds your curiosity and joy, not someone else's validation. Make this practical by scheduling small moments in the middle of your painting session or when commuting to work, when you are actively thinking about what you care about enough to make art about. It's very clear to me that a lot of my art is about depicting sustainable relationship with nature and showing our planet in a way that we understand how precious and valuable it is. I can say this now because I've thought about this over and over, and whenever I question what my painting is about, I often end up with the same answer in some shape or form. And I try to create this connection with nature through emotion. For that reason, getting the mood in my painting is really important because I don't want to preach through my paintings. I want people to feel what I'm feeling when I'm painting them. This also gives me an endless amount of joy and just pure joy for being able to do the work that I do. I don't think, am I better than somebody else at painting? Am I there yet? Am I one of the skilled ones yet? I don't feel like I'm in this endless treadmill to nowhere. I am doing the work when I feel like I am accomplishing those goals when I am communicating through my work. That is possible for all of you, even if you started later in life. It's really possible for you to learn the skills and learn to enjoy that. So if you ever thought I started too late, you didn't. You started at the exact right time for you. And that timing might just be your biggest advantage. This painting was done in Procreate, and if you want to learn how to use Procreate to create your own paintings, I have a full art course on Gumroad that teaches you everything from beginner basics and technical tools into more advanced concepts so that you can create your own paintings and your own worlds. If you want free tutorials, I recommend subscribing to this channel because I already have a huge library of content that you can use to learn art at your own pace. I'm Mikko and I'll see you in the next one.